Hello, welcome back to the Mobile Motorbike Mechanic channel. I'm Steve. Today we're heading off to Daventry to go and look at a ZXR750 H1. The customer's given us a call. He said he's trying to get it started. It's either not running or it's running very badly. So he wants the carbs servicing. So we'll see you when we get there. Right folks, so here we are with the ZXR750 H1. Customer has already taken all the panels off it, tank, fairing, seat, everything. So we're into the carbs today, like I say, and then later on, another video, we'll finish off doing the servicing and get it running. But today we're worrying about the carbs. So airbox off, carbs off, and then we'll strip all the carbs apart and see what they look like. Right, first things first. We need to get this airbox off. And I've already made a mistake by getting the wrong socket. Never mind. Right. Let's get these rubber covers off. Don't just go tearing at them. You need to go a bit steady with them. That's got it. Right, let's see if that's going to release. Yes, it is. Good. It should just pull out. There we go. Right, one airbox removed. That was a bit of a pain, and you hear there's a bolt rolling around in there, which is going to be awkward because we've got to get it back in there. But never mind. You might notice this rubber here has just popped out of this carb, so we need to make sure that we don't lose any of those. Obviously it looks like we've got a bit of damage on the thread there, but that's not too bad, that's okay. So we need to get the carburetors off. So in order to get the carburetors off, we need to come around the front of the carbs and we need to undo these clamps here. So there's one there, there's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. So we'll get those four undone, and then we also need to undo, almost forgot, you see these tubes that are running around the back here, and it's running up and down, that's actually coolant, believe it or not. So if you have a look down the side, down there, that is a coolant hose that comes off the engine. So we need to pinch that, clamp it, and then do it. And then around this side, there's one down here. You can see where my finger is under here. There's one. We'll show a close-up of it when we come to doing it. But yeah, and then there's a join further down here. So remember to clamp those off, because if you don't clamp them off and you undo them, gradually all of the coolant will come out of the bike. You notice someone has been in here before because the vacuum takeoffs on all of the inlet tracks, they're all missing. So this bike was never going to run right with those missing. That's that one gone. It's being a bit of a bugger, that one. That's better. There we go. Right, that's those two loose. I'll just grab that choke off whilst we're there. That's that one gone. Notice all the plug leads are loose as well, but we'll deal with those later. Right, so we've got to get these coolant lines undone, which is as simple as just pinching that, sliding it off and pulling that off. But to stop the coolant flowing out of that one, what this little surgical clamp. That's all we need. And then we've got to do the same on the other end. Right, so we're now looking at this other coolant line on the other side of the bike. And if you chase it down under the frame, it comes down here. So this is where we're going to break it, as it were. And we need to just clamp that one off there. And we can undo that clip. Oh, that one's a bit stiffer. Undo that clip. Right, and now that's ready to come off. The other side's ready to come off. Just like that. So with all that disconnected, obviously we've still got the throttle cables connected, but we'll worry about that in a minute. We can start to ease these carburetors out. They should start to wobble out. Just back and forth, get them going. Now, people have put it in the comments in the past, you can warm these inlets up with a hairdryer or a paint stripper gun, if you're careful with a paint stripper gun, and they will come out. There we go. Right, so now they're free. We can get to our fuel hose that's underneath them, and we've also got our what's that, a tick over screw adjustment that we need to loosen off. Okay, so that's your fuel hose running down to your fuel pump. So let's undo that down there. A pair of long nose pliers on that one. Bum 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 bum. If you pop. There we go. That's that one done. And we need to do that tick over screw, which is just here by the coolant bottle. Let's just release that, and then I can get that released from that clamp there. Cool. So with those undone, that should be everything that will allow these carburetors to come up. No, I've obviously got it wrong. Right, I've made a mistake. There's actually a Y piece in front of the carburetor for the engine coolant. So instead of clamping it there, I'm going to just come up here and clamp where it comes off the thermostat housing, and then I can undo there and take the whole lot out. So grab a cloth, because there's going to be a bit of coolant that comes out of here. But you know, we do make mistakes, we're not infallible. So now that can all come out. And somebody's actually put a zip tie on that in the past, but it means that can come out of there. So I'll just put that one back on there. Do that clip back up again. There we go. Right, and now the carbs should be released. Yes, they are. There we go. Right, that's the carburetors out. So I've just got to flick these two cables out, which can be a bit of a game. There's one of them. And I need a pair of pliers just to grab the end of the other one. Where were we? God, I can't hardly see this. Right, the light's awful in this garage, isn't it? But it is what it is. There we go, that's got it. Right, one set of carburetors. So, we'll pop those in a pot to stop them dripping everywhere, and then we can start pulling them apart. Right, so first things first, looking at the carbs. There's a little bit of damage on them, someone's been there before. I have stupidly forgotten to bring my 4-pot tray where I separate all the parts out. So instead of stripping every single carb down in one go and mixing parts up, I'm just going to go a carb at a time. So yeah, forgot to bring the tray, but never mind. But anyway, looking at the carbs, so we can see someone's been here before There's a little bit of screw damage on the top of this one, but apart from that, and like I said, the seals are getting a bit baggy and a bit wibbly wobbly, but they're all coming out anyway, so that doesn't matter. Yeah, apart from that, they're in reasonable good condition. Pop those over there for a second. Yeah, they're in reasonably good condition. They look like, overall, they look pretty clean. You know, they're not absolutely caked in mud and what have you. You can see the adjusters. These are the balancing screws, so you can see them nice and straightforward. Yeah, so overall, not too bad. So what I want to do is I want to take the bases off, take these float bolts off. Now, what state are those screws in? There's a couple of chewed up ones, but apart from that, they're looking pretty good. Yeah, that one's a little bit chewed up, but no, they're all right. So let's get one of the float bolts off, and we'll see what they look like. Yeah, these have definitely been off before because they're not sort of factory tight, as it were. We are going to be putting new seals in these, and we're also going to be putting new float valves in, just to make absolutely sure there's nothing untoward. Alright, that should do it. Yeah. Now, a good way of telling if your carburetors need cleaning, or if they've gone beyond need cleaning, is as they dry out, they might start turning a bit green and furry inside the float bowls and stuff. These don't look too bad at all. Like that down there is not dirt, that's just a different colour of the float bowl, so that's good. Let's get the float out next. Yeah, again, that's not overly tight, which is a good sign that someone's been here before us. That's your float with your float valve there, so we'll be replacing that float valve. The float looks like it's in good order. We can check that actually in a pot of water to make sure it floats later on, but that looks like it's in good order. Now, if you have a look inside the carb, like, fuel should be clear or maybe have a bit of a green tinge to it, and that to me looks pretty varnishy, yellowy, kind of a horrible colour. So that's a bit of an indication that we've got old fuel. So that's not great. So obviously we'll be pulling all the fuel out of all four of these. That's why it keeps coming. But yeah, that looks like pretty old manky fuel to me. The next screw we're going to do is that one that holds in the float seat. So we'll get that undone. Get him gone. Now, the float seat here, we need to get him out. They're long nose pliers. These should come out reasonably easy. There we go. Oh, right. You see the amount of gunk and crap and horribleness under there? Yeah, that's not good. Obviously, this is like a little pre-filter. So the fuel comes in here from the fuel tank, through the fuel pump, from the fuel pump up into the two halves of the carburetor bank, and then from there it splits into this carb, and then you've got a little filter before it goes actually into the carburetor float bowl, and you can see just how much rubbish is coming off that filter in my hand. So that filter's been doing its job, but obviously that filter can only do a certain amount before it either gets clogged or it's going to start letting smaller bits of rubbish actually into the carburetor itself. So right, luckily we're going to be removing those, changing them out, and now we can get into the jets. So inside there, down in that hole, don't know if you can see it, that'll be a pilot jet. This is your main jet, and then this is your emulsion tube. So let's get those out of there and see what we've got. Decent fitting screwdriver, because you're dealing with brass parts, and brass parts are always soft, so easily chewable. That's that one done. You can see actually on the edge of that, you can see where it's someone's had it out in the past and they've slipped and chewed it up. That's why you need a decent fitting screwdriver. Right, that's one jet out. What size is that? 8mm? It is an 8mm. I'm glad I went back to get the 8mm. Saves me another journey. Right. So those emulsion tubes aren't looking too bad initially looking at them, because they're not green. I'll hold them up to the light and see if I can see through all of the little drillings. Kind of see through them. They're not great. Yeah, you kind of see through them, and then yeah, you can't see through the end because then these ones aren't a pass-through emulsion tube design, so you can't see through the end of it. And like I said, I did undo that jet. There he is. So again, what's he looking like? Totally blocked on the pilot jet. Can't see through it at all. Can blow through it. There we go. That's better. Yeah, okay. So that is clear, but it's not clean. And then again, on the pilot jet, you've got a couple of holes through the side and a couple of holes through the side. So if we hold it up to the light, yeah, you can see through them. You can see through them. They're not too bad. So the pilot jets aren't too bad, but emulsion tubes need doing. And I threw the main jet in the pot before I actually looked at it. Yeah, main jet's clear, but again, we'll clear all of that lot up. Right, so that's the jets out of that carb. You can see actually on the where the fuel inlet is on the carburetor, it is pretty dirty in there. There's a lot of what's it, a lot of deposits. Right, so turn the carburetors over and we'll get the lid off. So to get the lid off, it's just the 4 screws at the top, 4 screws out. Now when you take this lid off, watch out, because a couple of reasons. Oh, he's all right. Hey, there we go. Right, big old spring is the first reason. The second reason is you don't want to go damaging that diaphragm. So we're just going to inspect it, roll it around, make sure it's all good. Don't, whatever you do, tip that upside down, because if you do, you see that needle's just dropped. So there's all sorts of bits and pieces inside. If you don't know the order that they came out, when you go to put it all back together again, your carbs won't work. So whatever you do, don't turn that upside down. But everything looks all good in there. Like I said, we've got no slits or cuts or bits of diaphragm missing, so that's fine. Pop that over to one side there. And inside the carburetor itself, it's all clean. There's no bits of schmoo or anything in there. And finally, if you just look inside that hole there, when you operate the choke, you can see that that's the choke mechanism is working fine. So happy with that one carburetor. So that's as far down as I'm going to go with these. They're not in absolutely terrible order. They're not completely gummed up. So what we'll do, we'll grab some carb cleaner, we'll spray it around, we'll blow through with an airline, get it all sorted out, and we'll also clean these jets, and then we'll put a few replacement parts in, do it 3 more times, and these carbs are done. But stick with us if you want to see how we go through each individual bit. Luckily, our customer has got a nice little bench in his garage. So what I've done is I've managed to separate all of the parts from the 4 carburetors out. So I'm not going to get them mixed up. So what I've actually done is stripped all 4 carbs down. All the parts are in the garage. Now, if you come and have a look in here, you will see all of the rubbish that's inside the inlets. And it is horrible in there. So this is the fuel inlet into the actual carburetor. So that's number 1. This is number 2. It's still a load of rubbish. 3's still pretty bad. And then 4 isn't too bad, but it's still got rubbish in it. So yeah, all 4 do have rubbish in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab some carb cleaner, spray through with carb cleaner. Obviously all of, oh yeah, that's the other thing. If you have a look here, all of the jets are missing now. So I've taken the main jet out, the emulsion tube out, the pilot jet out of every carb. There's a few tubes in the way, but you can see that all of those are empty. All those holes are empty. So what we want to do is we want to just go through and just clean and clean and clean and clean and clean. So we've got our air line, and we're going to blow through each of these holes, and each of these orifices and tubes, and we're just going to get rid of all the crap that's in the carburetors. And then we'll come back and we'll do every single jet as well. But let's start off by doing these. You notice all the tops are missing, so we can blow through all of the carbs without damaging anything. Right, so it's simply a question of getting a bit of carb cleaner in each one of them. Whatever you do, don't get this in your eyes. It really hurts if you do. Ask me how I know. And if you've got any cuts on your hands like that, it'll let you know you've got cuts on your hands. Right, anyway, so a blatant disregard for public safety yet again. So right. So I know probably wouldn't have got it on camera, but as we're blowing through each one of these holes, so through the main jet, I'm listening for air to come out of the actual carburetor body, out of each one of these areas, and I can hear that, so that's good. On the pilot jet, I'm watching to see and listening to see if we get a little spray of coolant coming out of residue or whatever coming out this area, because it tells me that these tiny little holes in the carbs are clear. So it's just little things to note, little things to look for. So come on the pilot on that one. Yeah, you can see it coming out of that one. It's difficult to see, but you can see it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. And the mains makes a different noise. Yeah, that's all good. Yeah. Right. And we'll just blow through. Watch out, because this might come at you. No, there's no more rubbish left in them. So now if we have a look inside our orifices, we can see that they're all nice and clean in there. No more residue, no more gunk, no more crap. So I'm happy to say that they've had a clean, definitely. What I wanted to do is I also want to blow through each one of these brass jets on the back of the carbs here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'll just blow through those now. You just, again, you're just listening for air coming out. If air's coming out, then it's clear. They're all good. Okay, so that's body's done. Make sure they're operating right. They are. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark the 3 balance screws on the carbs. They're quite easy to see on this setup because carbs are like that on the bike, and so you can see them quite easily. But it's a little bit dark in the garage, so I'll just mark them up with some paint just so I can see them. There we go. That'll do you. Beautiful. Right, so they're done. We need to do all of the gubbins that goes inside them. Right, so here's the parts out of number 1 carb. We've got our emulsion tube, and all we're going to do is we're going to, with our tiny little spiky file, we're just going to run through each of these holes and just give it a clean. We're not taking any material off, we're just opening the hole back to the original size and making sure we've got rubbish out of the hole. Number 4, and then number 5. Oop, come on, there you go. Right, and you turn it 90 degrees and you do the next set of holes. And then there's that last one. And then all we're going to do is, with a bit of carburetor cleaner, we're going to blow through and see if we get a nice pattern of the stuff coming out. Again, watch your eyes. We're not getting it out of those two. It's kind of coming out, but it's not really coming out of all of them. Now this emulsion tube design is slightly different from most emulsion tube designs because it stops halfway up, and then where those big holes are, that's a different cavity. So that hole is running through the middle, stops there, and then starts again there and runs back down again. So there's actually a chunk in the middle that's not going all the way through. But that's, so if you go to put that in there and blow it through, you'll only get it out of those 4 big holes. You see? You won't get it out the little ones. So you have to go from the other end with these, with this style. Oh, that's better. That's starting to come out of those 2 holes now. Yeah, just about. Right, we'll give it another one. One more clean. Let's try and box some of those holes up and see if it will come out of those. Yeah, it does come out of those holes. Right, cool. That's that one done. So, one emulsion tube clean. Moving on to the main jet. So the main jet sits on top of the emulsion tube. So we need to get a different, thicker cleaning device. And then again, we're just going to clean it. We're not taking any material off, just getting the gunk out. Yep, that's clean. So a little bit of air on it just to prove the point. So main jet screws onto the top of the emulsion tube. I always do them in that order because then I know that's been cleaned, and then I can move on to our pilot jet. So pilot jet, we've got 4 little holes in it to clean out, and we've got a tiny little hole right through the middle, which I can just see the camera lady through. slide it onto one of the bits of the brass brush, and you can see if it comes out the other end, which it has done there, so we know that's clear. Yep, nice stream out of that one. Touch of air. Hold on to these very, very tightly if you're blowing them through with air, because you can go and you'll never find them again. Right, then I just need to do those cross passages again. We're clean, we're clean, we're clean. Right, that, obviously we've got some new parts here to put into like the float bowl gasket, float bowl seat and the float bowl seal itself. To replace this float valve seat, we've got a kit here from Race It Direct. Is it Race It Direct? Yeah, it's Race It Direct. Yeah, they're good guys down at Race It Direct. Shout out to those guys. Not a sponsor, but they do good bits. Timely service as well. Now, that's our seat. We'll leave that there. This is our float valve. Now, that's the old one. That's the new one. You can see the new one's all nice and shiny. Just going to have a quick look at it just to make sure, yep, it looks about the right length, it looks about the right width. Float valve seat, you'll notice they look different because it doesn't have this little gauze on it. So the gauze has to be pried off. Ooh, carefully. Now look at all the crap on that. That is horrendous. This is the new one. Now that little gauze will just clip on to that replacement float valve seat, but because that's full of schmoo, I'm going to get my can of carb cleaner and I'm going to clean it out. Simple as that. So now he's all clean and all good, we can just clip him onto our new bit of kit. And old gasket, we've got a new gasket in there. We've got a new O-ring as well for the air mixture screw, but we ain't touching the ends. We ain't going to bother with them. So we don't care about the air mixture screw. So we'll grab that gasket out. Right, I'll go in carefully without dropping anything. Put that back in the garage with the others. I'll bring the other 3 sets out, do exactly the same, and then we can start reassembling the carbs. So first things first, we need to orientate the carbs so that we know which carburetor we're playing with. So carbs go in like that on the bike. So this is number 1. So these are the parts for number 1 carb. So what we want to do, I'm going to build the top up first. Now the slide will only go in one way around, and on the diaphragm you'll notice there's this little sort of tang that's sticking out, and that's got to locate in that part of the carburetor there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop that slide down in, and as that goes in we're going to line up the needle, and it just drops in there. Lovely. Alright, so make sure it's in the groove all the way around. Lovely job. We haven't turned that upside down to drop any of the parts out of it, so we can get the spring in next, and then we've got 4 screws and a lid, and you'll notice on the lid there's a little tang on the lid on one side, and that lines up with our little tang on the diaphragm. Pop it all down, you heard it clunk into place. Put a couple of screws in. Don't go mad tightening them up until all 4 are in, but at least if you pop a couple in, you should be able to let go of the lid and it not let the spring out, and then we can just Get the next two in. Right, tighten those four up. Right, and now we can turn the carburetors over and we can look to get in the jets in. So let me pop that under there just to hold it up so you guys can see what's going on. So we've got a float bowl with a brand new float bowl gasket. We'll worry about that in a minute. The float pivot, that's our screw to hold in our float seat. That's the screw to hold down the float pivot. That's our float valve. There's our pilot jet, and that's our main jet and emulsion tube that we had just cleaned. And then those are the screws and bits and pieces to hold the float bowl on. So, right. So let's drop in your main jet and emulsion tube. And we just need a spanner just to nip that, and then a screwdriver just to nip that. Cool. Pilot jet into the pilot jet hole. Decent fitting screwdriver because you don't want to chew the brass up. Just until it seats and then nip it. And then we need to start assembling this lot. Now I'm going to get some red rubber grease just to grease that seal up. So just want a tiny little bit, not loads. Pop it in the hole and it'll just slide in like that. Easy with a bit of grease on it. If you don't have the grease on it, they can be a bit tight and a bit to get in. And then the screw with the big sort of washer attached, that's the one that we're going to use to hold it in place. Just like that. Now we need to do a little bit of sub-assembly here. So there's a tang on the float itself. We need to pop that on there. Ah! Try that again. Pop that on there. Oh, come on, you bugger. There you go. Right. Okay. Now the carbs need to tip up a little bit, or else that float will fire off there. The float valve will fire off there. Let's turn these around. There you go. Right. So that's on there. Pin in. And then the whole lot needs to go down and slide in and go in its hole and line up all in one nice easy action, he says. And then the screw just goes in the end. Oh, that sun is so nice and warm. There we go. And the screw holds the pin in. Like so. Right, so just before I apply that, I'm going to show you on the float bowl itself. Very, very, very tiny differences. You'll notice on the float bowl gasket, just on this leading edge, there's a bit of a kink. Well, it's not on that side, and also the distance from that to that on that side is greater than that to that on this side. So there is a way around that these float bowl gaskets go. So just be a bit careful when you're chucking them together. And how we like to fit these is with a bit of blue Hylamar. It's not a seal, it's just a help. And all that will do is that will just hold it for us in that groove whilst we fit it. Doesn't drop out then. Right, on she goes. Lovely. Couple of weirdo looking brackets on this number 1 carburetor, and also the screws are different sizes. So longer screw for the bracketry, shorter screw for no bracketry. So short screw, long screw, little weird bracket on that one. These Kawasaki carbs are a bit of a fiddle with the old coolant pipes in place. Some Yamahas have these as well. Now this one, the bracket, that hole in the end of that bracket needs to go over this little brass piece here. And then in it goes. Now I can tighten all 4 of them up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. 1 carburetor all back together again. 3 more to go. Carbs all back together again. Bum 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 bum. So we need to refit them onto the bike. I'm going to pop those down for 2 seconds. Over there. Right. Inlet rubbers on this bike there. They're pretty hard, those inlet rubbers. They're pretty solid. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop some rubber grease around each one of those just to help the carbs slide on. So we'll just pop a bit around there, and then we can attach the throttle cables, and then we can hopefully drop the carbs in and they'll go into place. Before we fit the carbs, we need to fit the throttle cables. So throttles pull from the back, as you can see, they pull up through there. So we need to work out which cable is our pull cable. It's going to be that one, I'm pretty sure. Yep, there we go. That's our pull cable. So that one needs to go down through the middle of the carbs, and that's going to be the awkward one to fit. So that's the one we're going to fit first. See if we can fiddle this down through onto there. Oh god, this is a fiddly job. Why did Kawasaki make this so difficult? Go on, get in there. Oh, it's so close to going in. Done. Right. So that's your pull cable in place. Just going to quickly zip that down. And then our return cable is that one there. And that's the damn sight easier because it just clips on there and clips in there. Done. Okay. Sorted. Now, just going to place that kind of in place and check our throttle action. Snapping back, lovely. Right. So now I need to start feeding all of this lot. Oh, the plugs are all out. God only knows what's happened here before us. Right. Let's figure out where this lot's got to go. That's got to go down there. That's got to go down there. That's got to go down there. Come on, where are you? There you are. And that one has got to go down there. And now along there somewhere. There he is. All right. Uh-oh. Where's that gone? We're missing a clamp. Look at that. You little bugger. Let's go for try number 2. No, because that's all hooked up now. Why aren't you going out there? Go out there, you little bugger. Oh, come on, please. Please. That's got it. Right. We're lined up, we're lined up, we're lined up, we're lined up. We're good, we're good, we're good. Right. Cool. So, now it's just a question of satisfying plunk into place. So, carbs are in. That's our fuel line going to the fuel pump. That's our tick over screw there, which needs to go out that side. Ta-da! That's that one there. Everything else is looking good. We've got a coolant line there, which is correct. So now we can reattach that one. Give it a good push. There it goes. That's that coolant line reattached. Pop round the other side. We've got that coolant line that we need to reattach, which we will do. There. And we need to pull that clamp down onto it. Bottom. And then I can undo that clamp. Take the one off the other side. So I want to get these clamps on the inlets done up. So put the choke cable back in. There he goes. Make sure he's operating nicely, which he is. Stuff, throttle cables. They're all operating nicely, but I need to tighten those up because we haven't tightened them up yet. There we go. Cool. So the last thing to do is reattach our fuel line, and we need to redo that clip. Sorted. So what we do want to do is we want to refit the airbox. Remember earlier on in the video where I put some paint on the balance screws? There's one there, you can see the paint on it, and then there's one, where are we? There's one there, and then there's the last one over in the corner there. We need access to those to balance the carburetors. But yeah, what we'll do now is we'll get the airbox on, we'll blank off these vacuum intakes because the bike ain't going to start with those, they'll open. We'll get the plugs swapped out and then we can go for a start. So that's it, carbs are back on, we're all sorted there. What we're going to do is we're going to have to come back for part 2 to see if we get this one running, because we need to carry out a service. This video is getting a bit long, we don't want to have people switching off and getting bored. So come back in part 2 where we'll change out the air filter, we'll change the plugs, we'll get the motor running, we'll get it warmed up, and we'll do the oil and oil filter as well. So thanks for thanks for watching this far. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share to your friends, and we'll see you again on part 2 of this video real soon.